Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a world that feels like it's constantly shifting, doesn't it? Headlines pop up, but they often just hint at these deeper stories, these surprising connections.
Absolutely. There's always more going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. So our mission today is to try and untangle some of those threads. We're looking at global events from, battlefields changing shape, really complex trade talks, to that ever-present geopolitical chess match.
Right.
You've given us this great stack of sources, really fascinating stuff. And our goal is, well, to pull out the crucial bit, maybe find those aha moments and help you understand the real weight, the significance of what's happening out there.
Sounds like a plan. Where do we start?
Let's start in Ukraine. There was this really impactful event, a massive Russian attack. Our sources are detailing how the Ukrainian Air Force reported Russia launching something like 400 drones and a ballistic missile overnight.
400, wow.
Yeah. Targeting cities like Kharkiv, Kryvyi Rih, and Vinnytsia. And these are in, very different parts of the country. That immediately tells you something about the scale, maybe the strategy behind it.
It really does. And what stands out to me here isn't just the sheer number, like you said, the volume of the attack. It's how they did it. This coordinated drone and missile strike hitting diverse regions. Well, it clearly highlights Russia's trying to stretch Ukraine's air defenses really thin.
Making them choose where to defend.
Exactly. Forcing those tough allocation decisions and just relentlessly testing civilian morale right across the country. I mean, in Kryvyi Rih alone, our sources say DTEC, the energy company, reported around 80,000 families lost power.
That's huge.
It is. Now, Kyiv claims they shot down most of them, but 12 targets were still hit by 57 drones in that missile.
And as you expect, President Zelensky was quick to react. Called for more air defenses, naturally, more interceptor drones, and, a stronger resolve to make Russia feel the response.
Understandable.
In Vinnytsia, the Ukrainian Interior Ministry confirmed at least 8 people injured. And interestingly, the Polish Foreign Minister, Sikorski, he stated that Russian drones deliberately hit a factory there owned by a Polish company, Barrage Group.
A wood flooring producer, right?
That's the one. He called it a deliberate act, coming from 3 directions, and even noted that Putin's criminal war, as he put it, is getting closer to Poland's borders.
And it's worth remembering, context-wise, the Russian Ministry of Defense put out their own report. They highlighted their actions, mentioned taking control of a community called Novokatoyka in Donetsk region, describing it as successful offensive operations.
Right, so immense pressure on Ukraine. But despite that, they seem to be really pushing the boundaries of innovation, trying to sort of lessen their disadvantages on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Particularly with these unmanned ground vehicles, the UGVs.
Ah, yes, the UGVs. This is where things get really interesting, technologically speaking.
It feels like a truly fascinating strategic adaptation. I mean, Ukraine's been testing these UGVs for a bit, but it was only, December 2024 we saw the first confirmed combat mission.
With their own Jefe system.
That's right, the Jefe. Compact, stealthy UGV, carried out by the Charter Brigade up in the Kharkiv region.
But the progress since then seems incredibly fast.
Yep.
Just last week, there were reports for the first time ever of Russian troops being captured without any Ukrainian infantry physically present, just using drones and these ground robots.
That's a potentially revolutionary shift, isn't it? Deploying UGVs like that, showing they can actually capture enemy troops without direct human contact.
Yeah.
It's not just about saving Ukrainian lives, though that's huge. It could signal a whole new military doctrine.
How so?
Well, Ukraine, often being outmanned, right? They're essentially pioneering a strategy that prioritizes technological leverage over just sheer numbers of soldiers. It brings up that critical question Jakub Janovsk from the Oryx group raised. The big impact could be Ukraine eventually needing fewer troops right on the front lines. And fewer people in support roles, too, like logistics, casualty evacuation.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
That could be a major consequence down the line.
And that's crucial because, according to Zelensky, Russia's mobilizing, 40,000 to 45,000 men a month, while Kyiv can only manage about 25,000 to 27,000 recruits. So the question is, how much are these UGVs actually reducing personnel numbers right now? Or is it just maybe shifting the risk?
That's a really important distinction. Captain Alexander Yabchenko from the Da Vinci Wolf Battalion, he emphasized that point. He said, while they haven't significantly cut personnel yet, they absolutely have reduced risk.
Okay, so risk reduction is the key immediate benefit.
Exactly. UGVs are taking on some of the most dangerous jobs, helping soldiers hold their positions more safely. And these systems, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. You've got small tracked ones carrying ammo or water across open ground,
Right.
and then heavier armored platforms armed with machine guns or even explosive charges.
And they even have medical models, ones that can go into combat zones to rescue wounded soldiers. That sounds incredible given how dangerous that is for human medics.
They do. One is called the Luut. It's apparently already been tested on the battlefield and is in operation. The GUR, Ukraine's military intelligence, even released a video showing the Luut in action.
What did it show?
It showed it approaching enemy positions and firing pretty intensely at Russian forces.
And what makes something like the loot effective?
Well, what's notable is its discretion. It's silent electric motor, you see. It can handle difficult terrain, bad weather, so that mobility and stealth are key, making it really useful in, say, urban combat or within trenches. It just really shows how technology is changing the calculus of risk and engagement right there on the front lines.
Okay, so from that escalating military tech on the battlefield, let's pivot now. Let's turn to the global economic front. Things are pretty heated there, too. Nations locked in a different kind of strategic game.
Absolutely. Trade wars, tariff threats, it's all happening.
Our sources dive into some interesting trade developments. First up, an agreement the U.S. reached with Indonesia. The U.S. is putting a 19% tariff on Indonesian products coming in.
Right. But the kicker is American exports going to Indonesia. 0 tariff.
0. It's a pretty remarkable deal structure. And despite that tariff, Indonesia has promised to buy, what, $15 billion in American energy?
Yep, $15 billion energy, $4.5 billion in agricultural products, and 50 Boeing jets. Though, admittedly, no specific timelines were announced for those purchases.
Still, the White House was celebrating. They put out a statement saying, basically, they pay 19%, we pay nothing, and we get full market access into Indonesia. It really highlights a certain negotiation tactic, doesn't it? Using leverage or maybe the threat of it.
It certainly does. And it's worth adding, Indonesia isn't even like a top 15 U.S. trade partner. But the trade between them was nearing $40 billion last year.
With a pretty significant U.S. deficit, almost $18 billion, mostly things like palm oil, electronics, footwear, tires, rubber, frozen shrimp coming in from Indonesia.
And the Indonesian government is apparently still working on their side of the story. The joint statement detailing the whole package, maybe reciprocal tariffs or other arrangements, we'll have to see.
But that leverage point you mentioned, this deal becomes even more significant when you hear that the U.S. had apparently threatened Indonesia with a 32% tariff if they didn't accept a deal by August 1st.
32%. Wow. And similar letters, threatening tariffs up to 50%, were reportedly sent to over 20 other countries, including major partners like Canada, Japan, Brazil.
Right, and speaking of Brazil, the U.S. government has also launched a formal investigation against them, specifically targeting their instant payment system, Pix.
Was the issue there?
The main concern, apparently, is an alleged advantage the Brazilian government gives to Pix. The claim is it's structured to benefit local Brazilian services over payment solutions offered by American companies. It really makes you wonder how deep this more protectionist stance might go.
Indeed. And the overall trend here, the implication, it's actually profound. The average U.S. tariff level is expected to jump from around 2-3% before the current administration took office in January to over 19.7%.
19.7%.
That's the highest average U.S. tariff level since 1933.
Since the Great Depression era.
Exactly. It's not just an economic number. It signals this dramatic pivot back towards protectionist policies we haven't seen on this scale for decades. It suggests a much more aggressive, maybe America-first approach to global trade. And that could force other major economies to seriously rethink their supply chains, their bilateral deals, potentially reshaping the whole global economic order.
And usually tariffs at that level, they tend to shake financial markets, increase domestic inflation.
It certainly can, yes. Big potential impacts.
So while the U.S. was finalizing this Indonesian deal, the European Union wasn't just sitting back. They were preparing their own retaliation list against Washington just in case their trade negotiations fail.
Right. The EU apparently has a package ready that could affect up to $84 billion worth of American products.
Including things like Boeing planes, interesting given the Indonesia deal, bourbon, cars, chemicals, medical devices, even wines, beers, fruits. It's a broad list.
And European diplomats have been pretty blunt, calling this potential level of U.S. tariffs unacceptable. They're saying it would basically destroy normal trade conditions between the world's two biggest economies.
It really highlights how quickly these things can escalate, the potential for this sort of cascading effect across global markets.
Definitely a space to watch closely.
Now, economic leverage is clearly a major tool in geopolitics today, but influence isn't just about tariffs, is it? We see similar kinds of strategic moves happening in regions with long histories of contest, particularly the Caucasus. Russian foreign policy used to dominate there, but maybe it's losing some ground recently.
It seems that way in some respects. For instance, the Armenian Prime Minister, Pashinyan, he confirmed the U.S. actually made a proposal regarding a potential transport corridor, one connecting Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan region, but passing through Armenian territory.
Ah, the Zengezur corridor idea or something similar?
Essentially, yes. It's about a 32-kilometer road crossing Armenia's Sunak province. Baku has wanted something like this for a long time, partly because they worry that access controlled by Iran, the current alternative, could easily be shut off.
So what's the U.S. proposal?
Well, according to the U.S. ambassador in Ankara, Tom Bark, the idea is, quote, America comes in and says, okay, we'll take it over. Give us the 32 kilometers on a 100-year lease, and you all share that idea.
A 100-year lease. An external power administering sovereign territory. That sounds unprecedented.
It's quite unusual, yes. While it might seem like a practical solution on one level, it raises a lot of questions about sovereignty and long-term regional stability.
Definitely. So as the U.S. is making these kinds of moves, asserting influence, how's China handling all this, particularly the U.S. commercial offensive in Asia?
Well, it's interesting. Despite all the tariff pressure, especially from the U.S., China's National Bureau of Statistics reported pretty strong growth, 5.3% in the first half of the year. That actually beat their official target of 5%.
And how did they manage that with the U.S. tariffs?
Surprisingly, the growth was largely driven by exports. They rose almost 6% in the period. And the key insight here seems to be diversification.
Ah, finding other markets.
Precisely. Chinese exporters compensated for a nearly 11% drop in sales to the U.S. by boosting shipments elsewhere. Southeast Asia up 13%, Africa up 22%, Latin America up over 7%, and the EU up over 6%.
So that's a clear strategic redirection to blunt the tariff impact. Smart.
Absolutely. And there was another factor, another lever China used. It seems they strategically restricted exports of rare earth magnets, which, as you know, are crucial for American high-tech industries.
Defense electronics.
Exactly. And apparently, in exchange for ensuring the supply of those minerals, the U.S. eased certain restrictions, including making it easier for Chinese students to get into American universities. It's a very clear example of using economic tools as direct geopolitical leverage.
Fascinating. Okay, so from economic pressures and these strategic corridors, let's pivot one last time to the Middle East. Reports coming in about renewed Israeli airstrikes in Damascus and also a deeply troubling incident in Gaza.
Yes, starting with Syria. Sources indicate Israel launched a series of airstrikes in Damascus yesterday evening. Reports mention hits on the defense ministry and another target near the presidential palace.
Any word on the reason?
According to an unnamed Israeli military official, the operation targeted Syrian government forces. The claim is these forces were attacking Druze communities in southern Syria. The official stated, "We will not allow the massacre of the Druze in Syria."
And the strikes involved fighter jets flying low over the capital, hitting the military HQ entrance too.
That's what the report suggests, yes. The Syrian health ministry confirmed at least 13 people were injured.
And the Israeli defense minister, Gallant, he declared operations would continue until Damascus's forces pull back completely from that Suida area, where there have already been deadly clashes this week.
Correct. Clashes between government forces and local Bedouin tribes, reportedly leaving dozens dead already. It really seems the interim Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad, is facing, well, enormous challenges trying to stabilize the country. You've got existing minority mistrust, and now Israel taking the strong stance over the Druze situation.
A very volatile mix. And finally, let's turn to Gaza. This truly tragic situation. At least 20 Palestinians died yesterday at an aid distribution center, one run by the Gaza Humanity Foundation, or GHF.
Yes, GHF. That's the humanitarian group supported by both the U.S. and Israel, set up specifically to provide direct relief in Gaza.
So what happened, according to GHF?
Well, GHF says the tragedy was caused by a human stampede. They claim it was instigated by armed agitators linked to Hamas, who deliberately provoked the chaos. Their official statement says 19 people died from being trampled and one person was stabbed.
And they denied using force.
They denied using tear gas or firing on the crowd. They did state they used a, quote, limited amount of pepper spray to try and prevent more deaths.
Okay, but Hamas has a different version.
Completely different. Hamas rejected GHF's account as false and misleading. They assert that GHF guards and Israeli soldiers fired at the crowd and used gas against people.
And what about witnesses, people who were actually there?
This is where it gets even more harrowing. Witnesses interviewed by Reuters said the center's gates were closed while the crowd was being pushed, essentially compressed between those gates and an outer fence, creating this crushing effect.
Just horrific.
One survivor, Mahmoud Fuji, just 21 years old, he recounted. People kept pushing. Those who couldn't stand fell to the ground and were crushed. We send the prayers for the dead because we thought we were finished. The Palestinian Health Authority stated 21 people died from asphyxiation. The sheer desperation in these completely conflicting stories, it just highlights this deeply, deeply concerning humanitarian crisis around aid distribution.
And this isn't the first time there have been problems around aid points, is it?
Tragically, no. It's become a horrific pattern. The UN had warned just last Tuesday that over 875 people had already died near humanitarian aid distribution points in Gaza in the previous 6 weeks alone.
875.
Yes. And most of them, according to the UN warning, based on local reports, were near GHF centers. Many of those deaths, residents claim, were from being shot by the Israeli army, although Israel has said it's issuing new instructions for its troops. But the repeated tragedy around these aid points just underscores the immense dangers and challenges civilians are facing every single day in Gaza.
Wow. We have certainly navigated some incredibly complex and, frankly, quite heavy situations today. From, the evolving tactics on the Ukrainian front lines, where these ground robots are starting to redefine warfare.
Right, to the intricate dance of global trade, those new tariffs, and how economies like China are showing surprising resilience or finding ways to adapt.
And we also touched on those significant geopolitical moves, like in the Caucasus, and of course the tragic and deeply concerning situation around aid distribution in Gaza.
And what's always fascinating, I find, is how these events, which seem separate on the surface, are actually quite interwoven. The push for new military tech, the economic pressures of trade disputes, the ever-present humanitarian crises. They're all different facets of this rapidly changing world we're in.
Absolutely. Understanding those threads, how they connect, really helps you grasp that bigger picture. So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. Considering these rapid advances we discussed, particularly in unmanned ground vehicles, these UGVs and other robotic systems, and how their role in conflict is clearly growing, what kind of new ethical, maybe strategic questions start to arise as these technologies become even more autonomous, less direct human control? How might that fundamentally alter the nature of warfare as we understand it?
That's a huge question. The autonomy aspect really opens up a whole new set of dilemmas, doesn't it? Definitely something to think about.